90 years being celebrated of the Tour of Lombardy in Italy. This is the route of 250 kilometres, and I'm Phil Liggett, and welcome along to another one of our videos from World Cycling Productions. I hope you enjoy what is indeed a great race. An event which started way back in 1905, Gianni Bugno on the rollout here from Varese, which by the way is the hometown of Claudio Chiappucci, as they begin to make their way in a happy frame of mind indeed out towards the start, and sadly not in the director's car there now, the late organiser Vincenzo Taliani, but today we might get a glimpse of a plaque which has been erected on the climb of the Madonna del Gazalo climb. The organisers of many of the top races, including and the one he's most noted for, the Tour of Italy. Well, the race off to a good start. I'll give you a little bit of retrospective situation before we go to the live pictures. A breakaway forming very early on. It was caused by College, Pozzi, Michael Anderson, Nicola Panzeri and Vyacheslav Zhivanian, the man who won the Tour of Poland this year, Daniela Cignati, and they got away in a group of 6 and onto the climb of Gazalo. It was here where they dropped College, Cignali and Pozzi. These riders enjoying fairly warm conditions for the 156-mile challenge, or 250 kilometres. One of the races that was never affected by the First World War, by the way. They didn't miss out on any of the events during the First World War, but they lost 2 events during the Second World War. And we're now enjoying the 90th Tour. And this is where they dropped Cignali and Pozzi, College also being detached, leaving just 3 riders out in front as they headed up towards the top of the Madonna del Gazalo climb. This has never been a climb that's affected the race really, because it comes after only 100 kilometres or 62.5 miles into the race, and there's still a long way to go as they head down towards the first lap of Bergamo, where they pass through and then go out on another circuit. Michael Anderson, the big strong man for Telecom, is reported to be leaving the team. Leading the charge, Zhivanian is the rider in the Roslotto colours, winner of the Tour of Poland this year, held by none other than Maurizio Fondriest, his Italian team leader. And Pozzi, the rider who's gone, while Cignali is the rider hanging on at the back of these riders on what would be normally a pretty stiff climb. But the breakaway at the moment is still in the region of 6 minutes. Cignali also in trouble as the climb continues. A little bit early on in the race for efforts like this, but in fact it is Zhivanian who's doing the work. Cignali just about hanging on by the skin of his pants there. And big Michael Anderson, who is a very, very good time trialist, has had another very solid season as a pro. These are the riders in trouble further down the slopes. College was the man in the front. The high spot of the course is the Val Piana, which comes at around about 175 kilometres covered. But here the riders approaching the top of the climb of the Madonna, where the plaque is to Vincenzo Taliani, and I don't think we're going to see it. But this is the story of the race so far. Cignali takes the lead over the top, Anderson second, Zhivanian is in 3rd place. And as we now go to the live pictures, we've got a counter-attack coming from Fabian Jecker of the Festina team. Anderson is still out in front. And this is Fabian Jecker, trying to salvage something out of a rather disturbing season for him, riding for Festina and trying to climb away now from the field. Three hours 42 minutes in the saddle now, and the beauty of this area of Italy as autumn comes. Anderson still out in front. Michael Anderson, who's often been a man to annoy the big names of professional racing. As Jecker now tries, I think what Jecker would like is somebody to come along and give him a little bit of a hand here on the climb, and maybe they will. Swiss star. Richard Virenque, his teammate, waiting for somebody to counter a move, sitting just behind the Motorola rider on the front. And the Once riders keeping the pace on the front. Anderson is on his own, though our cameras haven't shown him yet. He's got rid of the other two riders who are with him, who are spread across the climb here as we race up to the high spot of this year's Tour of Lombardy. As we approach 175 kilometres, there we have Michael Anderson. We used to go over this climb the other way until a couple of years ago, when the course has now been altered yet again throughout the colourful history of the Giro di Lombardia. But Anderson's still looking very, very strong indeed. Almost 8% this climb, which is 1 in 12. Michael Anderson, I saw win the Tour of South Africa last year. In tremendous form he was there. This is Fabian Jekker still trying to get on terms. Giovannian is somewhere in between. And Panzeri. And they've also split up. Pace here being set again. Looks as though it's Alex Zula on the front. It is indeed. Zula still riding strongly. The new world champion at the time trial crashed in the world championship, took out the Vuelta a España. So he's having a good year. A little bit disappointed with his Tour de France, I'm sure about that. We caught a glimpse of Graham Watson on the motorcycle there, always in the right place at the right time. The British photographer whose pictures we see around the world, and he's got a nice shot in his lens there of the pacemaking and tempo riding being done here by Alex Zula. And Zula's certainly strung out what is left of this big field on the climb of the Val Piana. This tall man with so much class, and I must say now the sun is shining, he tends to stay on his bike a bit longer because we've seen him fall so many times this year, and the latest one was at the feeding station in the World Championship in Lugano. This is still Jekker, climbing very, very strongly indeed, and I think, although we haven't seen it, I think that they've wiped out the riders in between Jekker and Michael Anderson. Well, this climb, more commonly known as Roncola now. There is Jekker down there. And that is how we bring you the pictures. And the Westcam film camera, you can see on the outside of the helicopter, getting a nice shot of Michael Anderson on the climb. Reportedly about to leave the telecom team, which he joined only this season. Very aggressive rider, Michael Anderson, but has lacked the big results that never really come his way. He's waited a long time to finally land a professional contract as well. But he did say at the beginning of last season to me that if he didn't get a pro contract he would retire. But he got his pro contract last year and he moved to Telecom. Wasn't part of the successful squad who rode in the Tour de France. It's a one-on-one at the moment as Jekker is trying to close down a gap of more than 6 minutes. It would be perhaps favourable if Jekker found himself a little bit of help here on the climb. 27 years of age now, never had a win this season. But he showed the signs of his form coming, because he was 21st in the World Championship just before this event. But now it's his 6th season as a pro, and he'd like a big win. Zula, and just behind Zula you can see Jalabert in yellow. It looks like he's got Andrea Perron. There he is. For Motorola is the rider from the American squad there in 2nd place, as we're heading up towards the top now, the Val Piana. And in fact Anderson still has this big lead. He's been out in front almost from the start today. He's seen riders come around him, he's shed every one of them. Welcome to Roncola, it says. And Michael Anderson of Sweden is the first man into the village at the top. Now up with the zip as he starts the plunge down below, a fairly long and steep descent which will take him down to round about. He's up here now at the height of the climb, which is almost 1,000 meters, and the descent will plunge him back down to 300 meters above sea level. There's what is still a pretty compact field, although it only looks to be about 25-30 riders in the main field. And still Zula, who seems to have no ambition of winning the Tour of Lombardy, content to make the pace, possibly to get Jalabert in contact with the action and wipe out what has now turned out to be some rather sad memories of the World Championship. Jalabert felt that the tactics ridden by the French team was all wrong and that he had no say in it. And he finished a very, very frustrated 7th. He sees his season as being quite a disappointing one, although I have to say by the standards of most professionals, it's not been bad at all. Jekke. A little bit similar to Pascal Hervé, the way he rides his bike, Fabien Jekke. And still riding a very high gear, as these professionals do these days. When they're trying to push home and attack, you need an immense amount of strength. As Jekke stamps on that big gear, he's still got a gap. Heading up towards Roncola. And still at the front of the group here, Alex Zula, trying desperately to pull Laurent Jalabert back into the action. As always, the other Frenchman in the Festina team, just peeping out behind Zula, is Richard Virenque. Andrea Perron for Motorola. In the Japan World Cup to come for the Motorola team, where Max Chiandri has asked the team to go. And then that will be the end for Motorola as a sponsor. We'll all miss them. Cheers for Fabien Jekke, who is now up the climb. Nobody in between apparently. Jekke's followed by Moto 2, which indicates he's the second rider on the road. He's over the top. And it looks to me like the familiar figure now of Andrea Tafi, who is starting the counter-attack. He really has come good this year. We saw a great ride by him in the Worlds. He didn't quite have the legs to push home a medal result, but he got 6th place. And now he's trying to drag these riders up the climb. He's got 2 men out in front. Similar situation to the World Championship, really, isn't it? Because he had 2 men out in front when he started his counter move there. In Johan Museo, Mauro Gianetti, well, they're not together in this event. Jekke trying to get on terms at the moment with Michael Andersson of Sweden. And this area of Italy, around Como, looking extremely pleasant as winter approaches. 2 minutes 27 to Jekke, so although it was over 6 minutes, it has come down. Jekke is crossing the gap with a little bit of panache. This is Michael Andersson being chased by Fabien Jekke. 1991 Jekke turned pro, and that was after a fine 5th place in the World Amateur Championships, which attracted the contracts. And now we move on to the feed. 190 kilometers covered. We're in Bergamo. The riders now face the rest of this race on a big circuit of some 60 kilometers, and there has been a general regrouping at the front. They have picked up the man who has set the pattern of this race all day, Michael Andersson, of the Telecom team, and around him have come 10 riders, including Fabien Jekke, who's got all of the help he wants. It's Gianni Bugno here nearest the camera at the feed, and this is now looking a very, very settled move indeed. Bugno in the thick of it, takes a drink, having a look back. This is the group that's coming around them now. Richard Virenque setting the pace. Laurent Jalabert has also got himself up here. Stefano Catai of Roslotto. He's the only Roslotto rider to be in this breakaway move, and there he is. Number 136 is David Rebellin of the Polti team. And 2 Mapai riders have made it. That's Nardello going through. The other one is Andrea Tafi, Andrea Perron, Axel Merckx. This is Jalabert coming through now. So this is a very, very talented breakaway. The hard work by Alex Zula for Jalabert on the climb of the Val Piana has paid off, because the move came after the top of the Val Piana, heading down to the valley and onto the second feed of the day. And now the riders who are still finding the enthusiasm and the form in October, coming towards the end of October really, they've now got themselves set up into a breakaway which looks to me to be the decisive move. There's Richard Virenque, 5th in the World Championships, and the man that started everything sitting now at the back and probably finding life a little bit uncomfortable, Michael Anderson. He was unlucky in fact, because he did puncture just before they finally closed down on him, and he was riding extremely well, but I think expecting too much to go the distance. And Nardello, by the way, was second last year in this race, has now made what might well be the final selection. He's had a pretty good season, Daniele Nardello. Won a stage rather, the Vuelta, and last year rode so well and narrowly lost winning the first Tour of China. That was really bad luck. He lost it on time bonuses in effect in the end to Vyacheslav Yekimov. There's Taffy. A little bit of flat roads now as they race towards the last big climb of the day, the Col de Gallo. And there's a few of the names I give you, and there's the rest in the breakaway. Axel Merckx reaching for some food to finish off the journey, along with Andrea Perron. These riders eat little and often during this stage of the race, just to keep the energy levels high. Now this is the third group on the road and trying to get on terms, but they're losing ground at the moment. Here, that's Francesco Casagrande group, and going to be biting the lip now, I think, as David Rebellin keeps the pace high. Pink jersey in this year's Giro d'Italia. And it looks as though they've got themselves pretty well organised here on the flat stages, heading towards the last big climb. Through and off for him. And there is the picture of Laurent Jalabert, the top Frenchman on the Spanish Once team. He speaks fluent Spanish, by the way. Now riding in his 7th season as a professional. And although he's won Paris-Nice, the Midi-Libre, the Classique des Alpes, 2 stages of the Vuelta, and was 7th in the World Championships, he won 30 races in 1995, you might. Stefano Catai, 153. And this is going to be a rather splendid occasion for Eddie Merckx' son, Axel. There's the distance to go, just about 60 kilometres left to ride. And Axel Merckx, it seems, is going to ride for the Polti team next year with the demise of Motorola. Well, Polti weren't in sponsorship when Father Eddie was around, and he rode for the Molteni team. But either way, it's interesting to note that son Axel is following the same pattern as Dad Eddie, because most of the best years of Eddie's cycling career were performed in an Italian team jersey. There's the world champion, Johan Museo, deciding to pull on his World Championship jersey instead of the jersey of the World Cup leader, and apparently the jersey they offered him was too small. At least that was his excuse. He has this love-hate relationship with the World Cup, although he is the leader, and he said he wasn't going to ride. Well, after winning the world title, he's changed his mind, of course. There he is. But his job today is a relatively simple one. He's not interested in winning the Tour of Lombardy, but he is interested in the whereabouts in the pack there of Andrea Ferragato and Michele Bartoli, the only two riders in the World Cup who could take his overall victory away from him. So wherever they go, I think you'll find Johan today, and if they're out of the points, then he'll be a very happy man, because it would probably take the event down to the final World Cup event in Japan, a one-off event as part of the World Cup series in Japan this year, because it is possible for Ferragato, if there's only one event left, with 50 points going to the winner of any World Cup race. I think Ferragato is about 36 behind. The Polti team coming up to speak to David Rebellin, who who's actually done very well this year. He has had 1 or 2 bad years, felt he's been mishandled by various team managers, but the Polte team have looked after him pretty well. He's settled in and he's become quite a star. And he's probably well aware that Axel Merckx in this breakaway is also his teammate next year. It seems to be time for the talk and the tactics now, as the riders continue to make their way, and David Rebelan under orders now to get back into the bunch, having had his little chat with Zenoni Giusue, director sportif there of Team Polte. And still 11 riders down there, so the 10 that came up and joined Anderson must be sitting on the tail, because I can't see him right now. This is the chase group of Museo, and not surprisingly the man he's marking, Bartoli. This rider going through here is Francisco Morelon of Mapei, but Mapei have riders up front and will only be trying to hold the pace rather than bring back the group, because Andrea Taffi, they must now feel, has a real chance of winning. He rode a brilliant World Championship, he's clearly strong and he's got the selection. He won't of course want to take on the likes of Laurent Jalabert in any sprint finish, so if Taffi is going to win, he's going to have to look for a lone win, I think. Split in the group there, caused by riders allowing doors to open when they were more preoccupied with drinks and the like. And there you see the breakaway has gone to pieces. 5 riders trying to go clear. Now the chase down here will certainly hurt Michael Anderson. And in fact Anderson is not there because there are only 10 riders, so I don't know where he went, but he's gone. Or was there 11? I think there were in fact 11. There was actually 7 chasers and 4 or 5 in the front. Anyway, they're all back together again. Watch out for the pink jersey of the tough boy is Michael Anderson. He certainly won't go off without a real fight. I once read a CV of Michael Anderson, so I can tell you a little story here, because it said the most admired cyclist, and Michael Anderson wrote me, and then he said married, yes, and hobbies, chasing girls. So I don't know how he worked all that out, but he's quite a humorist, is Michael. They're all back together. Richard Virenque, Gianni Bugno keeping the pace high with a nice time. I think it was Richard Virenque. Jalabert is marking Gianni. Katai both back together. A little bit ragged at the minute, but it does seem as though they're getting themselves together. Here comes a little message for Stefano Katai. There's Jalabert, and this is where we are as we're heading to the climb in the middle still to come. You probably heard that shout for Bugno as well. He's also the boss now of the professional riders representatives, so he's the man that looks after the wants of the professionals. He still has, though, this love-hate relationship with the press, especially the Italian press, who are often scathing in their criticism of him and then say all lovely things about him when he pulls one out of the bag. Well, he doesn't really like that. Continual gaps opening. Somebody is actually trying to break up this group. Still the 11 men, and still Michael Anderson. There he is, last man in the line here, out of the saddle, determined to hang on to the showdown of this race, having been most of the day out in front. We're just on 200 kilometers covered. I think Anderson must have been out there for at least 140 of them at the moment. Anderson sitting at the back, trying to hang on to the back wheel of Andrea Taffi. Race continues to head towards the Col de Gallo. And there's trouble, and it looks as though Anderson's had a puncture again. Anderson's had a puncture. The mechanic was a bit slow because Anderson actually, all the brake had gone and seemingly the cars as the mechanic came up, and Anderson was not too reticent to show his disgust. But that is really unbelievable because a wheel change should take about 9 seconds. Anderson has been kept waiting there for what seems to me a fair time, maybe 20 seconds. He's got away now, but surely he won't have the legs to come back to this group. There is the only thing in his favour, of course, there is a long convoy of cars because of the number of teams represented here. But we're heading on to the climb now of the last serious climb of the day, the Col de Gallo. I don't know if we'll see. No, we won't. I thought we might see Anderson coming up through the cars, but no such luck. As we go back to the front, Fabian Jekke again stamping his authority on a climb. Richard Virenque, his team leader, on his shoulder. Jalabert riding second wheel. Oh, actually on the Col di Pasta, so we've still a little way to go to the next big climb and the final climb of the race. So in fact Anderson's punctured quite a way out from the finish if he can find his strength to rejoin this leading group. There they are, just remind you of the names: Andrea Taffi of Mapei, Axel Merckx Motorola, Fabian Jekke of Festina, along with his team leader Richard Virenque, Andrea Perron also Motorola, Laurent Jalabert Once, David Rebellin from the Polti team, Jalabert on the front at the moment, Daniela Nardello of Mapei, Stefano Catai of Roslotto, and Gianni Bugno of MG. Some very famous names there. Jalabert now wants to see if they can go with him. Now, we never think of Laurent Jalabert as being a great climber, but he can climb when he wants to, and that's witnessed by his great win in Midi-Libre. His Classique des Alpes victory this year as well, which is, as the name suggests, a classic race charging around the Alps. Taffi sitting at the back and taking the steeper but shorter way around the corner and tries to snick a place or two, which he's done. He's gone past Jekke, who's now come to the... Well, Anderson is not going to come back while the pressure stays on like this. Well, the climbs here as we head up towards the Col de Gallo are not particularly serious, but they're coming all of the time. It's an undulating valley road. It's up and down. It's perfect roads for strong men to break up the rhythm and try and escape. And the boys riding the heavy gears again to keep the rhythm high. Bugno leads, followed by Laurent Jalabert. Well, Bugno's kept his enthusiasm throughout the year this year. This great cyclist. He's now riding in his 12th season. At 32 years of age, there's still a little bit of life in those legs judging by his riding again these last few weeks. And despite his so-called poor form, he did manage to win a stage of the Giro, although he lost a lot of time before he was able to get the win, and he also picked up a stage in the Tour of Spain. Stefano Catai seemingly in a little bit of trouble. Is he going off or is he coming back? At the moment I think he's coming back. I'm not so sure now. He's looked over his shoulder because he's obviously under pressure if he's cracking at this stage of the race. Nardello. And Catai's made the gap on these beautiful lanes, ready-made for international cycle races. A little bit narrow, but not when your group is down to 10 men. And the weather still pleasantly warm, as we'd expect in this part of Italy. Well, we've had no information at all on the time gaps back to what is left of the main field, but from what we understand, the main field is slowing down dramatically and are losing ground. And the reason being, we have so many of the big names and top teams represented here, I can't think of many people really left to chase now back in the main field. It was a question of reading this move or being left out of the result of this year's 90th Tour of Lombardy. Still Fabian Jekke, who's got himself back to the front. Crashed in March this year, but now seems to be having, as so often happens, a nice end of term. Italians, by the way, the 95, or rather 90 Tour of Lombardies we've seen, the Italians have won 57 times, not surprisingly. And then you go back to the French and the Belgians, who've managed to win 10 each. And after that, well, Switzerland, Holland and Ireland have all won 3. And Ireland, of course, were all done by Sean Kelly. And Luxembourg, Great Britain and Russia have won 1 apiece. Those well represented at the front again here to try and make it 58 wins. And of course the 90th Tour to them will be one of great importance. A lot of work being done at the front there by Fabian Jecker. Nobody, it seems, willing to work too hard. Heading now towards the Col del Gallo, which is a climb itself which will lift the race. So basically we're running along an undulating valley road which hovers around 270 meters, and then up from 345 we climb in very short shrift Gallo. Then it's well, there's one more little climb before the riders continue their descent back down to Bergamo. The Tour of Lombardy always changing its route over the years. It has done on, I would think, 12 occasions since it first was started back in 1905. It seemed to have settled in for a start and finish at Monza between 1990 and 1994, and then it changed again for the depart from Varese last year, and it's settled for the same start and finish this year. Feed time for Virenque, looking pretty relaxed with the whole affair. He knows this group is going clear. I don't think there's going to be any more threats from behind. Merckx comes through. Bugno anxious to keep the pace nice and high. He goes through again. And Gianni Bugno well aware that this is one race that he's never had on his palmarès, and I think might like it. In fact, the same could be said for any of the riders in this breakaway, because none of them have won the Tour of Lombardy. Daniel Nardello was second last year, and that's about as close. Gianni Bugno, rather, he got 1988, and that's the closest he's come. Change, because I think next year we're going to see a lot of these new names really develop, and a lot of the older names find it pretty hard. The Mappe boys checking out Nardello, and now it's Taffy's turn for a little bit of help on what's going on. I think the man in the suit is Fabrizio Fabri, who's keeping an eye on his Mappe boys today, having seen Museo get the World Championship for Belgium, but of course also for the Mappe team. He's now got 2 different riders in the breakaway. Little smile at the camera there by the man with the new goatee beard, Richard Virenque. They suit some people, but I don't think they suit Richard. And Bugno also passing through the camera. Taffy taking a few tips, and I'm quite sure that Mappe are banking on Taffy now. No sign of weak links. We've seen the gaps open. I think they've been opened on purpose. We've seen the riders close them down pretty easily. So I think if there's going to be any challenge now, it's going to have to come on the climb before the finish, which will take us to the high spot on the climb of the Gallo. Bugno is getting a little bit animated. Well, let's go back and have a look at Group 3, because the arrival of Michael Anderson, who's now being picked up by the chasers, and that really is sad. He never did recover from what was a very poor change. Shoulder, and thinks, why do I bother, because he's been swept up by a group there now who's really out of the hunt. Stefano Cattai just speaking to his team car there and getting a drink, and he's going back up to the race. Concentrated drinks the riders take just before the finish, and Cattai pedaling pretty smoothly goes back up to the leaders. The Slotto team, which is being led at the moment by Maurizio Fondriest. And look again at the world champion, who's marked Feligato and Bert Bartoli, I think, out of this race today. I'll be feeling quite happy with the situation. So Johan Museo prepared to take no part in the result of the Tour of Lombardy. You can't blame him for that. Enjoying the day's ride as champion of the world. Number 17, Tony Rominger, reportedly thinking of moving teams, which is displeasing the Mappe boys. And the gap 2 minutes 40. So really, if somebody were able to give a good turn, it is quite closable, but I don't think there's anybody left back there to chase them down. Sitting at the back of that group, still Stefano Katai. Katai, by the way, has never won a race as a professional, even though he's now in his 7th season, I think it is, as a pro. Turned pro quite young because he's only 29 now. And David Rebellin sitting at the back in the Polti colours. Back comes Axel Merckx, going back to the team car. Have a word with Jim Okovitz, the director sportive, and what a nice man, of the Motorola team. And it'll be sad to think that we won't be seeing Jim in a team car next year with no team to look after. But it looks as though we've gone back to the front, and no, we've gone back to the back, because this is Moto 3. It looked like Konishev who was launching an attack, but it's all coming a little bit late, but maybe. This group is going along very, very quickly indeed. Andrea Perron has now taken off his hat, still coming through. Followed by Jalabert, Bugno, Merckx. Well, the team car from Polti would have finally got themselves into a position where they can speak to Rebellin. There's Andrea Perron. Perron not produced a great season, but he's happily landing himself another contract for next year. He is a good rider, he just needs that little break like so many of the top pros do. Former very prominent member of the Italian team time trial squad before he turned pro. Chase group, Tony Rominger. And Rominger, even though he seems to be working that hard, I don't think he's chasing too hard, not with Taffy up in the lead. Maybe keeping the pace high enough to discourage moves. As we do see, well, we saw briefly there, a little look at Dmitry Konishev from the Aki team. There he is. It looks like he's grown himself a moustache. What an extroverted character Konishev is. He's been known to turn up at races without shaving his legs, can you believe? But Konishev there, just being joined by Mauro Gianetti briefly, who got the silver medal in the world, and Gianetti will not be looking to ruin this breakaway for his teammate Rebellin. Fabien Jecker followed through by the passive appearance of Laurent Jalabert. Then comes Andrea Taffy. David Rebellin. This frail man who can climb well, but I'm afraid he couldn't time trial too good, and that cost him the Tour of Italy this year. Richard Virenque. So near and yet so far from winning Paris Tours, caught in sight of the finish after a long breakaway to give the race back to the sprinters, for whom it was designed, of course, Paris Tours. There's Gianetti, still trying to get clear, or at least control things with Konishev. And they're saying they're at 2:31, so they're holding, and then the chase group is at 39 seconds, so they're keeping these two in sight. Everybody trying to scramble their way up to the last climb of the day, the Col de la Gallo. Fausto Coppi. How ironic, he rides a Fausto Coppi frame, and it was on the course in 1953 where Fausto Coppi became world champion. That only a week ago. Mauro Gianetti got the silver medal in the World Championships. Same 10 riders. A blend of old talent and up-and-coming talent like Rebellin, Nardello. They're the new boys on the block. Axel Merckx. And the men who are heading up for the over 30 membership here is Andrea Taffi, who is exactly 30. And the other rider over 30, Gianni Bugno, who's 32. 2 minutes 10 seconds, they're saying to the breakaway. Richard Virenque will have spotted it, no doubt. And just behind him, Nardello. And then Perron. Going through the outside, you may have heard the whistles from the riders as Fabian Jecker launches the attack. A very attentive Axel Merckx chases him down. Well, this might cause a little bit of a rift in relationships in this breakaway. Merckx tries desperately to get on. I think it's Rebellin who's behind Merckx. As they catch Fabian Jecker, a bit slower to react at the back of the bunch. But this attack at least is going to be contained. Nardello suddenly catapulted to the back when that attack happened because he was right up at the front. So Jecker, Merckx, Rebellin, Jalabert, who was also very attentive there, went straight across on the wheel of Rebellin. Now it's up to Axel Merckx to set the pace. There's an ease of unrest in the breakaway. There's no liaison at all as far as working goes. They're just doing hard turns at the front and attacking, but of course then it slows right down again till somebody else does the same. Merckx has backed right off to allow a little gap to open to make somebody at the back of the group come through. Rebellin, Jalabert, and I missed the rider at the front. We'll get him later. Oh, it's Richard Virenque here. Jalabert following him. And a major acceleration by our camera, and it locates Fabian Jecker, who's returned to the front of the race. He really is riding well. He hinted at this sort of form coming in the World Championship, but he had a top 30 finish in the end. But now he's going to try and see if he can land a big win. So Jecker and Taffi, I think it is, going clear. So Taffi, who's also from Tuscany, by the way, is just containing Fabian Jecker at the moment. And again, Merckx is looking for the action, just as he was, but he was handicapped in the World Championship. There's the latest time checks, 2:15 and 1 minute 10. So it's 3:25. Main field then, falling further away. And this is a little bit of picture break-up to start with, but I hope it doesn't spoil the effects of the race too much. We haven't had too much of it here at all, as these three riders try to do something now to reshape the action at the front, and Taffi has got himself yet again into a decisive part of a major event, followed by Fabian Jecker, who certainly deserves some sort of reward for effort, who's been working very hard all day, and Axel Merckx riding a high just now. You can't slow this man down. 3 riders clear. A real pleasant time to be in Italy, with the sun high in the sky. Now, there's going to be decision time here shortly. Merckx has a teammate in Andrea Perron, so he's not going to counter. Jekke has a very illustrious teammate there in Richard Virenque, so he's not going to counter. And Daniel Nardello, the teammate of the leader of on the road there, Andrea Tafi, he's not going to counter. So that takes out 3 of these men, which is only 4 to do the work. Stefano Catai's never won a race in his life. He's sitting at the back and doesn't look too interested. Jalabert will wait for somebody else. He often does. And so I'm not too sure that we may not be witnessing the winning move here of Lombardy. Catai sits and continues to sit at the back. Virenque will just watch the movements of the Once rider Jalabert. Bunyo is a man who is likely to have a go. He doesn't like to hang around too long without trying to incite a riot, and Bunyo has moved to the front. David Rebellin, another man who's likely. Well, they're going to gamble on the last climb, I think. Andrea Perron looks over his shoulder. He likes somebody to fill the gaps. Richard Virenque, no problems. This is where the counterattacks might come, and that may be why Perron is dropping down the line a little bit to keep an eye on affairs from the back. Bunyo setting the pace as we go forward, and let's just get some idea. Maybe this will be it on the motorbike. A high-speed ride on Moto 1 up to the 3 leaders. The closed roads of the Giro di Lombardia. I'm not sure whether that was a club cyclist or not going up the hill there. Well, we're going to find out now because we're joining the leaders and these are the same 3, so I think a club cyclist slipped onto the course, but he's got away with it, and we're back with the leaders. That's the sort of gap. Unusual way of showing you, I must say, but quite an interesting one. Tafi in the centre, Axel Merckx riding well at the back. Fabian Jekke searches for the back wheel. In fact, he's going to have to take the back wheel of Tafi. That was a terrific acceleration by Tafi. Merckx had absolutely no answer. It came on that tight right-hand bend. He took the shortcut around, and now Fabian Jekke, who's got the strength, I think, to pull back Axel Merckx. But it certainly showed that Axel was in a little bit of trouble. As he fell back there, the gap opened, just like a piece of elastic being stretched, and that was a real power display by Andrea Tafi. Tafi continues to be the strong man at the end of season here. His big chase down in the World Championships in the end rewarded him with a 6th place finish. And Fabian Jekke has forced himself back onto the scene, and I will think that acceleration by Tafi may well have opened the gap a little bit more. On the right of the picture, the chasers led by Laurent Jalabert, and there you have the 3 leaders on the left. And they're looking a little bit twitchy now. We've seen that strong acceleration by Tafi, but they've all come back in nicely. Merckx has got the lead at the moment. There's Tafi tagged on behind Fabian Jekke. 7th summer of cycle racing as a pro for Andrea Tafi, who is now 30 years of age. While the young up-and-coming Axel Merckx is still only 24 and entering his 3rd season as a pro. Scored his first win this year in September and also finished 4th in the World Championship. All the signs now are developing very quickly. Fabian Jekke, 6th season as a pro, not a prolific winner. Most of his season he's been struggling to find form. 45 seconds, the 3 leaders over the original breakaway, then it's back to 2 minutes 15 to the chase of Gianetti and Konishev, and the main field slipping right out of it. And Gianetti, silver medalist in the World Championships, and Konishev, by the way, had a similar medal. He was the first Russian medalist as a pro, going back a few years now to when Greg LeMond was the world champion. And that was at Chambéry. Sean Kelly was the rider who felt he should have won the title, but he messed up the sprint. Bronze medal for him. Well, this long climb now become a tempo power climb for Fabian Jekke. Merckx has recovered from that body blow delivered by Taffy. Has got himself up into second place. And Jekke continuing to stamp on those pedals and lift the pace, and it is actually stretching Merckx, I think, to the limit, but he's hanging in there. Taffy as well. And Taffy swinging right out, and in fact Taffy going again. Andrea Taffy has delivered another blow this time. Look at the sprinting going. He had to brake for the corner there, and the climb continues, I think, around the left-hander. But now they're going to have to chase once again, and Merckx once more can't chase. It's left to Jekke, who brought him back last time, and I think is going to get him back this time as well. Taffy climbing. Fabian Jekke trying to chase him down, and Merckx trying to hang on to Fabian. Jekke looking half over his shoulder to see if there was any chance, but there isn't. Merckx is just holding. Jekke has come through and goes immediately by and just checks to see if Taffy has any legs to lift it. He has, and I think that'll shut it down. So that's twice now that Andrea Taffy has tried to break clear of these two, and on two occasions Fabian Jekke has been the man to bring him back. If this had been one-on-one, I think he would have cracked Merckx. But hats off to young Axel. Suffering he may be, but staying with the top three in the Tour of Lombardy he most certainly is. This is the group behind, led by Gianni Bugno. Perron will not offer any help in second place. No sign of a reaction at all from Laurent Jalabert, but there is at the front again. We switched right back there. We caught, I think it's Graham Watson on the hop this time, as Axel Merckx got a close-up of the camera and has tried to go clear. Now, surprisingly, Taffy hasn't reacted. Once more, it is Jekke chasing down the attacker, and Jekke has clawed his way back first. So after me telling you that I thought Merckx was finished, he's put in an attack like that. Here comes the Mapei team man again, Fabrizio Fabri. Very happy with the way things are going at the moment. Jekke riding like a real champion today. Meanwhile, back in the chase group, which is still losing ground, it seems to me Gianni Bugno, who has been designated the workhorse of this group, as he continues to climb. Richard Virenque on his wheel, followed by his eternal shadow, Laurent Jalabert. And that group slipping away to 1 minute and 10 seconds, so it's looking very, very good for these riders now at the front. Andrea Taffy is in third place. Paddy Brussels already under his wing this year. And now Merckx has been the man who's been told to do all of the pacemaking, it seems, while the others recover from their efforts to get rid of him. In and out of the saddle. Fabian Jekke, remember it was Jekke who started the counter move on the Val Piano to bring back or to create the initial reaction, which finally brought back Michael Anderson, who has now been dispatched to the back of the race, as Jekke again tries on this climb to break them up. Further down the slopes it's Bugno still on the front, followed by Virenque. They really have got to react a lot quicker than this now and try and get into a workmanlike line if they're going to have any chance whatsoever of bringing back those three leaders. And I feel that's not going to be the case. Laurent Jalabert very rarely looks unhappy when he's riding his bike at whatever speed. It's difficult to read just how he really is feeling. All the cheers, as always, for Gianni Bugno. Still no change in the order on this last real serious climb, but you see the little blimp halfway down is also quite tough and a perfect springboard. We go over towards the top of the climb now, of the Col de Gallo. And in fact, Jekke there slipping his gear and bouncing on Merckx, and Merckx took a look at him, but it's an innocent mistake. Jekke labouring a bit now, and I think Taffy may have spotted that, because he's gone again with this time with one terrific acceleration. This is a serious attack. He's been waiting for this one. The other two were dummies, but I don't think this one is. They're going to have to bring him back, and bring him back quickly. A terrific acceleration by Andrea Taffy has gone clear here, the winner of Paris-Brussels. Third in Paris-Roubaix. He wants a really big classic victory under his belt. This might be it. Andrea Taffy goes clear. He's not looked over his shoulder yet to see what the damage is, so he knows how well he's going. Now he does. Now he's seen the gap. Now how long can he keep the effort before he must slow down? Will it be long enough to open up the gap? As we look down, and there is the gap, and they have been blown away into his slipstream here. Fabien Jekke seemed to just falter that moment, and it was spotted by Andrea Taffy. Taffy continues now to ride away from the other two with a tremendous attack. Now, that's a familiar sight when the cameras we've seen alongside Andrea Taffy so much this year, going close in on his face. Usually the man trying to win a race. Now, here we are again with him trying to win a race, but can he stay away? Inside 30 kilometres to go to the finish. Fabrizio Fabri is going to shout him all the way home if he can, back down to Bergamo. Up alongside him yet again as we come up to that 763 metre summit. And all the crowds will always shout well for an Italian winner. 57 victories so far, and this the most important Lombardy because it is number 90. And we expect an Italian to win, of course. Taffy keeping the rhythm now. He's recovered well, I think. And there's Maxel Merckx. I think he's got his hands full at the moment, just holding on to Fabien Jekke. But if they can recover, they're heading up toward the top of the col here. They can chase Taffy down on the descent. Two good riders on the flat can go quicker. But they really got left for dead with a brutal attack by Andrea Taffy. 33 seconds, the official gap over the top. Bugno still the slave master of the chase group, nobody willing to help him. Little space trying to be cleared, judging by the car klaxons there as Bugno comes through. I'm surprised at Virenque, well, not surprised at Virenque, of course, because he's got his teammate at the front, but I'm certainly surprised at Jalabert making no attempt here to offer assistance. We wouldn't expect, in fact, the Motorola rider Perron, who's riding a great teammate ride, sitting there on second wheel. There's Virenque on third wheel, Jalabert, then Rebellin, and then Nardello, second last year in the Tour of Lombardy, and in a big move again this time out. But I think we may well have seen the top three riders up the road already. Unless, of course, the two chasers do show signs of cracking. Just about 25 kilometres to run into the finish now. Bergamo, Andrea Taffy enjoying without doubt his best ever season, has taken the bull by the horns and gone clear. Took 3 attacks to do it, but really the other 2 were dummies compared to the power he applied on that third move. Through the switchbacks on the way down. The sort of corners you love to descend when there's no traffic coming towards you, because you can use a big gear and go very, very quickly indeed. And Taffy speeding away, it appears, just now, waiting for the first time check. But Jekke seems to be the pacemaker in the chase group. Axel not, at least when the cameras look at him, doing any of the work. Nardello sitting snugly in the dining car at the back of this breakaway, and not interested at all now in the Tour of Lombardy, except I'm sure he will be interested when it comes to a sprint for the minor placings. So Axel Merckx riding for Motorola for what might be the last time, unless he goes to the Japan World Cup, but I don't think he is. And next year will come out in the colours of Polti, getting used now to the Italian roads. A little bit of a dizzy descent there by Taffy, corrected himself as he went into the corner. Now he's driving on again, calling for the big gears. He must know of a little climb round here, because he just pushed it down a couple of sprockets for the acceleration out of the corner. And then it's back into the high pedalling ratios as he continues his push on now towards Bergamo. In the late afternoon, in the autumn, in Italy, the sun is shining high over an Italian as he heads now towards victory. And this win for the Italians, remember, will be win number 58 in the 90th year of the Tour of Lombardy, a race which only lost a couple of years of its long history because of the Second World War. And these last few years haven't been ultra kind to the Italians for victories. Although Gianni Fadazin won last year, before that we had Vyacheslav Bobrik of Russia, then 2 Czech wins for Pascal Richard and Tony Rominger. Then we had Sean Kelly of Ireland win, and Gilles de Leon of France, Rominger, Motte. You have to go back to 1987 until last year for victory by an Italian, and that was Moreno Argentin, who's now retired. Fadazin that won last year, and it looks as though Andrea Taffy will get his name on a big time classic in a few minutes. He's still got a fair way to go, but judging by the way they're chasing behind, unless he makes a slip, he should be good. His lead is now up to around a minute. Race distance just now, 226 kilometers covered. So that makes it 24 kilometers to go down to the finish. 15 miles. Still time to win or lose the Giro di Lombardia. Merckx doing his turn at the front now. He seems to have recovered from the beating on the hills. Festina up alongside to say that it's really up to him now, because I think Virenque is going to remain a captive of that chase group. This is the chase group here. And so Bruno Roussel will have to have told Fabian to just work steady with Axel Merckx and see what they can do. They might recover. End of the drink, a souvenir from Lange Jalabert. Once, rumoured to be trying to persuade Miguel Indurain to join them next year at an enormous sum of money, which depending on which newspaper report you read changes, but I can guarantee it is millions and millions of dollars. iffy signs, because the Once team are well aware that all of the victories, or most of the victories on the Once team, are produced by foreign riders. And for that reason, it does appear that the Once team aren't as popular in Spain as they might be if they had a Spanish winner on the squad. And so I think they're very conscious of that. And of course, this year too, they had the terrible tragedy of losing Mariano Rojas, who was killed while driving his car to the Spanish National Championship. He was a rider of quality, and a rider I actually knew quite well. And Mariano, I think, in another year's time would have been a real star, but I'm afraid that was never to be. So they might well sign Indurain and persuade him to fly the flag of Once next year. 22 kilometres to go now. Taffy is looking like a man who's beginning to enjoy this race. Certainly not the sign of a man who is suffering and hoping to survive to the finish line. He is still pushing on and feeling extremely confident. These two riders are losing ground by my calculations. Jim Okovits will know better than I do, but he's now indicating whatever to Axel Merckx, and Axel speaks English, which is just as well, because Jim might have a problem with his Flemish. And certainly Fabian Jekke is salvaging an unhappy season with a great ride today. He's certainly not here by luck. He's here because he created the move that led to this breakaway and what has become now the chase. Out in the country, no crowds to shout for Andrea Taffy. The Tuscan is going to just simply have to get on with it now and talk to himself and persuade himself he has the ability, he has the condition. Now, why can't he have the win? 68 seconds the gap to the two chasers, so we're going out a long way now to the Bunyo group, who are falling out of this competition. There's Richard Virenque, hardly looking like a man now, who is going to take part in this race, and Bruno there will have told Richard Virenque exactly what the situation is with Jekke, and in case he didn't hear it the first time, he's come back to tell him again. So Virenque will just sit around the back of this group and try to mop up what's left of the race, unless of course they happen to mop up Fabian Jekke and Axel Merckx in the run into the finish. Bunyo, his hair seemingly a little bit longer each time we see him at this time of the year. He must be preparing for the social season, because for many of the riders this will be their last race of the year. Many of them don't want to go across to Japan and extend that season that little bit longer yet more, because it's been a long year for them, and before they know it they'll be training for next season. The breaks are very short and not always sweet for pro bike riders anymore. There's a lot of demand on their ability. For 45 seconds they're saying to Jekke for Bunyo's group, so they might well pick up Jekke and Axel Merckx. Merckx has heard the news and is now trying to lift a little bit of life into these two here. Yes, the message quite clearly has reached them, because Jekke was looking over his shoulder there to see if he could see them coming up, so they are closing in on the two chasers. But I wonder if they're having any effect on this man, Andrea Taffy. Clear as a whistle at the moment and looking good. Came to the fore, I suppose, with a stage win in the Tour of Luxembourg, although lots of riders win the odd stage in Luxembourg and we never hear of them again. But that was back in 1989 for Taffy. But his results were just one of a good domestique, getting the occasional victory until last year, when he was fourth in the Henninger term race in Germany. He got third in the National Criterium Championships in Italy. He finished 39th in the Tour de France and 35th in the Giro, two very strong performances there. But this year has come so good for him. After his third place in Paris-Roubaix, he then has won Paris-Brussels and had a sixth in the World Championships. Swiss-Belgian tandem trying to, I don't think necessarily trying to catch this man, Taffy, but I think now trying to stay away from the chasing group of Gianni Bugno. Because Bugno, Rebellin, Virenque, Jalabert, Ginetti, Perron, they're all in that group. Daniela Nardello. Here comes Fabrizio again for an update. But I think Taffy knows where he is in this race right now. This is all a matter of encouragement now to keep him on a high. Such an aggressive rider when he's down on the tops of the handlebars there. He looks so good as he puts the pressure on the pedals. Doing the time trial of his life here. And Merckx and Jekke, they're doing their own little tandem time trial because they know that group is not very far behind. They really are living on a life edge here, I think, because that group of Bugno is closing in and it could well connect in the last couple of kilometres of this race today. But I don't think they've got a chance of picking up Taffy. He's extending his lead over everybody. Just keeps glancing up ahead and puts his head down and looks at the pedals, counts the revs. It's a lonely life for him now as he rides towards the finish of the Giro di Lombardia, but he will feel continually inspired by the fact he is closing in on the biggest victory of his career. Fabian Jekke started his reaction today at about 170 kilometres into the race, and then he's facing up to 80 kilometres in racing at this position now, but he knows that chase is closing him in. And so too does Axel Merckx, so they've got to keep the pressure on. No matter how they feel, they've got to suffer and try and stay away from that chase group. There's the gap, it's going out to almost 2 minutes now. That's the sort of ride that Taffy has produced over these two. He's jumped away and he's got almost 2 minutes on them now. So to the chase group behind these two, he's over 2 minutes. Still motoring, still looking good. Now you can hear the crowd shouting him by name. Of course they have the privilege of rushing indoors and watching it on television, then rushing to the end of the garden and see him go by. Ooh, a little bit of water on the bend there that caused Taffy some consternation, but he's out and safe and kicking away again, taking it back up to that 40-45 kilometre an hour speed he seems to be maintaining. And Merckx, now we're on the flat, seems to be the man to carry Fabian Jekke. It was the reverse role on the climbs, but now Merckx is settling down to holding these two away from the chase group, which cannot be far away, although it must be more than half a minute because we've got all the vehicles in behind these two. So it's reasonably safe. Here's the group. Still led by Gianni Bugno. He's been able to do nothing except hard work at the front. He's obviously decided to just stay at the front of this race because nobody's been willing to pick up the chase. Just tapping through the pedals with almost a smile on his face. Daniela Nardello, second last year in the Tour of Lombardy, knowing now that his teammate is alone in the lead. Another share in the prize money heading towards Daniela today. And there's still a chance, of course, if he was a good sprinter, and he's not a bad sprinter, to clean up what will be at the moment for fourth place from this group. And somebody has taken a flyer off the front. I'm wondering if it's Mauro Ginetti. In fact, I think this is Rebellin on the Polti squad here, so it could be Ginetti who's gone. But anyway, he's come back into the fold. And it's the status quo again. No reaction, you see. They just brought the rider back, and now they slipped almost back into the old habit of just tempo riding in this breakaway. Nardello sitting at the back, followed by Laurent Jalabert. Again, a season hampered by sickness and a little bit of injury. Finally lost his way in the Tour de France on the road to Gap, and he abandoned. 2:12 now, so he's continuing to build and build at an alarming rate. I think he could go on for 260 or 270 kilometres, but this race today will come to an end at 250, and we're running down into the last few kilometres to the finish, and Andrea Tafi is certain, I think, certain as one can be, to take out the race now. Here comes the team car again. Happy days. And there's been another attack at the front, and I think again by the Polti duo. It's either Rebellin or Gianetti, and in fact it is Gianetti who's gone. And they've split this field for the moment. Jalabert, attentive as ever, is quickly across the gap. Virenque is trying to make up for the door that somebody opened, but he's got across as well. All this happening some 2.5 minutes behind the leader on the road, and there's how to do a real bunny hop over these traffic calming humps that are appearing all over Europe these days, and not the best of things for professional bike riding. Jekke has been told, I think, that the group behind is beginning to bring them back, and for that reason he's gone. He said nothing to Axel Merckx. I mean, a word in Axel's ear as well might help to say they're coming back, because they are coming back. You've got Merckx sitting here at the back. You've got a chase group. Here's the reaction that started now behind. This is the sort of move that Laurent Jalabert has waited seemingly interminably long to happen, because he wants to wait for somebody else all of the time to make the attack, and then he quickly joins in, and before you know it, he's won the race. But slowly this breakaway is regrouping here. There they all come back again, and so it's going to all come to an end. I think Gianetti has been the man causing all of the consternation in that group. It's a typical move by him. Now Daniel Nardello has gone. In the midst of the confusion, what happened there was he saw everybody counting the move, and he's broken clear, and Nardello, and you've got to take your hat off to him for doing it, has gone out in front now, knowing there is quite a big buffer margin over 2 minutes 20 seconds, because that's to Jekke and Merckx. So Nardello is now trying to get 4th place on the road himself. But he's sat at the back, and he's done all of his part as the teammate of Andrea Tafi. Now can he stay away as the kilometres tick off? Tafi knows now, with a lead of 2:20 over 2 tiring chasers who are really looking like they might be swept up at least by Daniele Nardello. Then all he's got to dream about now is victory in the Giro di Lombardia. Only the 3rd Italian in the past 10 years to win it. Merckx trying to call through Fabian Jekke. Nardello must be making progress. Unfortunately, there's so many riders around now, and they're not really as proficient at bunny hopping as Andrea Tafi was. And just to prove me wrong, they both did it quite well there, didn't they? But just behind now, and I don't know by how far, Nardello is gaining. Here's the chase group. Nardello's still ahead of them. But our camera committed here, Moto3, so we've only got 3 television cameras, so Nardello will be in between. Somebody else has gone again. And this looks like it might be Rebellin who's gone this time. The Polti boys sharing the counter-attacks. And In fact, I think they've picked up Nardello, because I think he's riding at the back of this group again. So they must have caught him, and that's why Moto3 has come back to this group. Well, it's quite a pursuit that's going on out here now, as this group are sensing that they are catching Merckx and Jekke. And then they'd have the race on their hands for second place, and Nardello knows all about that. And 6 kilometres to the finish, I think the small sign said, on the left of the road. I hope the riders saw it. It wasn't hardly a big one. And it's 4 kilometres, they're saying, for the lead out. So that would be about right. 2 kilometres now spread across between the front and the second and third on the road. 4 small kilometres now. 246 have been covered, and Andrea Tafi heading for the greatest win of his life in what is turning out to be his best ever season. Certainly be no stopping him now. After knocking at the door these last 2 years, he's now going to be able to say he won the Giro di Lombardia, and in his 90th year at that. He's going as well now as he was when he broke clear. He's not showing any signs of fatigue whatsoever as he races down towards the finish here in Bergamo. He's in the streets of Bergamo now, as he heads down towards the Via Foro Buario and the VOG David Piazza Marconi. And the finish will come on the Via Papa Giovanni, the 13th. The breakaway, or the chase group, is still trying to split each other up here. It's Rebellin who's now causing the trouble. They've done pretty well to hold off that chase group, you know, because they're not very far behind. I can't give you the actual time gap, but we're only talking about 35-40 seconds. And on the straights, they must see the gaggle of cars behind the 2 leaders. Okovic again passing on a word of encouragement to Axel Merckx, who is suffering, but hanging on in there. I'm not even so sure that Tafi, we've just seen there, is even suffering. He seems to be absolutely flying today. Well, Merckx and Fabian Jekke are also closing in on the finishing line now. And again, a counterattack has gone off the front. And this is the chase group, of course. But it looks to me as though they're continuing to split up in that chase group. It's not going to be a sprint if they continue to attack like that. 2 kilometres to go inside for Fabian Jekke. I'm not surprised he's found time to smile. He knows the gap. This is going to be a great moment for Andrea Tafi. Nothing like Paris-Roubaix when 3 Mapai riders approached the finish. Orders went out that Museo was to win, Gianluca Bortolami was to finish second, Andrea Tafi was to take but the 3rd place. Now there's nobody around him. And Tafi is going to win the Giro di Lombardia. These are the great moments of a professional cyclist's life, when you know nobody can touch you. You can enjoy riding down the streets into the finish in Bergamo. Even if you were to puncture now, there's time in hand to change a wheel. Although I don't suspect he would like the thought of that happening. And there's the gap. The top 2 riders are Jekke and Merckx, and there is the chase down just behind. It is going to be desperately close for those 2 as we go on to the last kilometre for Andrea Tafi, a rider who made his professional debut in 1989, and until this year he really had won nothing to talk about. But now he's won something big. He backs up the win in Paris-Brussels, his 3rd in Paris-Roubaix, with a great victory here in the Tour of Lombardy. He's going to win as he continues to build the time gap over the chasers. They're not catching him at all. Andrea Tafi is going to run in with a time well over 2 minutes for victory here. He looks back at his team car, he waves to his team car, they wave back at him. Another great victory for the Mapei team. Taffy showed us this form, he gave us a good look at it on the Crespira climb in the World Championship a week ago, when he finished in the end in 6th place. He looked for a long time he was going to take the bronze medal. It wasn't to be. But now, after almost 6 hours of riding today in Lombardia, he's going to take 1st place here instead. And I'm sure he will see this as some consolation prize. Andrea Taffy gets the win of his career. Now, next year, I'm not sure whether he'll be a team leader or still a team domestique. Well, we'll find out next season, I'm sure about that. But right now, these are moments to be savoured. Look at the team car behind, too. Taffy crosses the line, winner of the 90th Tour of Lombardy, and look at that average speed too, 42.559 kilometres an hour. That's approaching 27 miles an hour today. These professional races get quicker and quicker, and it looks as though Merckx has held off along with Fabian Jekke the chase down. They can't be very far behind, but it's enough. Jekke looks over his shoulder now. Now, can Merckx get a good result and take 2nd here? Or has Jekke got a sprint after a long day of attacking riding in the mountains? Merckx staying totally committed towards the line. He knows how close the chase is. And I think he's giving 2nd place here to Jekke by doing all of this pacemaking at the front. There's the gap to Taffy. Jekke now moving up on the shoulders of Axel Merckx. Merckx has nothing left. He paced the line. He knows they're coming at him. He's got to keep going. 2nd place, though, will go to Fabian Jekke. And he salvaged a poor season with a great result today. While Axel Merckx goes on from strength to strength. This has been in many ways his year, when he's broken away from the shadow of Daddy, gets 3rd. Nardello is still clear. He's joined by David Rebellin, beats him in the sprint. The runner-up last year, 4th today. David Rebellin will take 6th place. And the tears of joy for Andrea Taffy, who's now no longer a domestique. He's a real champion. The sprint now that comes in here is being led, I think, by Richard Virenque, but we need a front view, and Bugno is also there in the glasses. And Gianni Bugno has been a worker extraordinaire today, and I think he's going to even get the sprint here if they can't come up. Jalabert looks as though he isn't going to challenge. Yes, he is now. So it's Bugno. Gianetti's on Bugno's wheel, and still a good sprint by Bugno. Virenque on the right, and in fact Bugno gets it. Virenque clipped in there for what would be 7th place. Gianetti and Jalabert, who didn't have his heart in that, as sprinters often don't when it isn't for the 1st place. But there is the man of the day, Taffy, and this is how he did it, coming right down the finishing straight of the Papa Giovanni the 13th, waving to everybody. The moment to be savoured. He's waited till the very end of the season. What a long time since Paris-Roubaix back in April to win a classic race, and he's got it now. And would you believe the sun just came out as well. So Andrea Taffy wins the 90th Tour of Lombardy, the 58th Italian to do so, and keeping the racing at home once again. I hope you've enjoyed all of our coverage this year on World Cycling Productions, and until the next time we meet, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.